Hey guys, Roy here from Apotheca. You may have seen something show up in your GA4 reporting that you hadn't seen before, and our clients sure have, so they've been asking questions about it. We're going to talk about it today. And if you go into acquisition under lifecycle, you're going to see non-Google cost. Non-Google cost is a report that has actually been around for a while, but it didn't show up previously until you actually uploaded data for non-Google ad paid search costs. So all those other programs that you might be running, like LinkedIn ads or Facebook ads or Bing ads, obviously that cost data is not integrated with Google Analytics, so it doesn't pull it in automatically. That is one of the nice things about Google Analytics, is that it does pull in Google Ads data automatically if you connect those two accounts. So, but with the others, you just kind of have to manage the cost data separately if you don't upload it. So this is showing up now by default. So we're going to look at how you can add Google or non-Google ad costs to your reporting if you so choose. All right, so I've clicked on that link here, and you can see what it does is it shows your typical campaigns broken out, whatever campaigns you have running. This account does not have any other real campaigns running, but just to show you as an example. And you can see it has some of your typical metrics, but it has ad clicks, which Google does not track by default, because obviously that has to come, that data is a click data that's coming from your ad campaign. So like, for instance, Facebook clicks is not the same as visitors. Those are clicks that are recorded by Facebook, so you'd need to add that to the import. It doesn't show by default ad costs, but that is something you can import. And it doesn't show impressions, again, which is something that you can import. And then all of this stuff is calculated metrics. The cost per key event, that kind of stuff is all calculated by Google. So that's all great. It doesn't show any information. How do we get to it? So what you do is you go to the admin. Okay, and under data collection, there is data import. And so in here, you can create a data source. And you can see here that cost data is the first selected because that's the most obvious. The others are stuff that you may want to import at some point, but that's not the point of this video in particular. But there is a lot of flexibility here if you do want to import data. So for instance, maybe you have offline data about sales that you want to import. If you have information based on client ID or customer ID that you can tie back to certain customers and certain campaigns that may be offline campaigns or in-store purchases or something like that, you can import some of this. So to start out with, you want to select a data source name, and this is going to be your single data source for importing ad costs. So I would just put it like something like non-Google ad costs. And you can't put a hyphen in there. It doesn't like a hyphen. You can then choose down here from manual CSV upload, which if you're Microsoft centric, you might want to do Excel spreadsheets and then save those as CSVs that you can upload. It does also let you do SFTP. We're not going to talk about that a lot today just because it tends to be very more technical. So if you have a technical team that can set up a server where you're updating this data on the server regularly, and Google can just pull that in automatically, that is honestly a great way to go, because that way you don't have to manually do a lot of stuff. But it does necessitate a technical team and developers to set that up and to do all that kind of stuff. If you're using BigQuery, that's also available. It's a really good option for you if you're integrating third-party data into BigQuery. And then obviously there's all these other, I found Reddit to be kind of interesting. I'm not quite sure how you would use that. I guess if you're doing Reddit advertising, it could pull in it automatically. That seems like an odd choice. But we're going to choose Google Sheets because we use Google Sheets. Okay. And then you can connect. Now, before I go too far, there is this page that I will share a link to in the description that shows a lot of the information about data import. And these are always important to reference because Google does give you required information that you need to have in your spreadsheet. as well as the format that it needs to be in. Okay. And then it has dimensions that are optional but highly recommended. Whenever Google says something's optional but highly recommended, it's really pretty much optional. For it to work correctly, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing that. And the kicker in here is that most campaigns are going to have a name. So in your UTM, that's the tracking code that you put in a link. That is going to have a name in it, right? So you have a campaign name typically. If you don't, you should. I'm going to link to a couple a video that we did about campaign tracking and that kind of stuff that talks about UTM links. That gives a little bit more detail about how to build those. But these are the ones that you are definitely going to need. You're going to need a source. You're going to need a medium. So source, for instance, could be Facebook. And medium could be CPC, so cost per click. That's paid ads in Facebook. And then you're going to need a date, and these are by day, so you're going to want cost by day. And then the campaign ID is something that a lot of people don't use, and we'll look at that real quick. It is a variable that you can add to your UTM codes, the URL string, but a lot of people don't. In this case, you probably should start doing this. So if you want to start tracking costs, I would go back and modify your links in all your existing campaigns. So if you're running Facebook campaigns, go back and add that UTM underscore ID to them, and definitely make sure you have a UTM campaign underscore campaign, because that's the name of the campaign. That's what makes it more intelligible in your reporting to understand which campaigns are driving information. And then you have to have these metrics. You have to have at least one of the following. So clicks, obviously, and then costs, because we're importing costs. So you kind of want to have that. This is a sample of the template. So you can see they include the UTM ID, they include the campaign, source, medium, the date, the impressions, and cost. And then they have a convenient download here so you can get the template. Let's take a look at that template, and you can see it's similar fields to what they had in there. All right. And they've already thrown in some information in here. Let's just call this, let's rename this and call this non-Google Ads cost. All right, so, and this is just some sample data, obviously. So where do you get this data to put in here? Well, it depends on what campaign you're running, right? So if you're running Facebook, you're gonna have to find it in Facebook and export it. And in some cases, manually copy and paste it in here. If you are doing LinkedIn or Bing, same thing, you're gonna have to, by day, copy and paste some of this information in here. That's why I say you really need to decide whether it's super important for you to have this information in Google Analytics, or is it something that you could, for instance, import on a monthly basis into Looker and just create a dashboard in Looker that shows the cost, because there's a way to connect spreadsheets and Google Sheets into Looker Studio as well. It's not going to be in the live data. It's not going to do some of the same automatic calculations that it'll do in GA4, but in your dashboards and stuff, you would have your cost data, and you just need to connect those tables. So it's really up to you. Do you want to spend your time, copying and pasting this stuff? Do you want to figure out a way that builds these for yourself with VLOOKUPs and that kind of stuff? That is a business decision that you're going to make, but we'll show you how to do it in case your boss or your client or somebody else wants to do that. So this is the template. We're going to show you just real quick in Facebook how to do that. So you have, go to Ads Manager, and you want to go to your ads reporting. And in the ads reporting, there is a way to customize the table. And so you go in here to customize the table to make sure that you're getting the data that Google is requiring. So for instance, one of the things they wanted was link clicks. So we can add that. Scroll down here. We don't need any of these other things. We do need it by, and so link clicks is selected. That's metrics. And then the breakdown, we need it by day. All right. And so now there's this information in here by day. And so you can choose to go in and copy and paste this very cumbersomely. or you can export it and then either try to import it into this table, or again, copy and paste those columns in here so that you have that data by the campaign and whatnot. So for instance, you have, we would want the links, clicks. So we have the clicks, and then we have the cost. So the amount spent per day. And so you're going to need to go in and copy that information, paste it into this sheet, or import it somehow into this sheet. You could, in the export, you could select whole columns and paste it in here. You're just going to need to make sure that your campaign name is the right one for all of those. So maybe you want to do it by campaign, where you have a whole running list of that campaign by day for the month. And then just make sure it's the right source and CPM and it's the right date. So you're changing that date. So let's say, I'm just going to leave this data in here. Let's say we spent $50, we spent 25, and we spent 10. And maybe the impressions are 1,000, 2,500, or 2,500, and then 500. Yeah, I don't know, right? Clicks doesn't matter because this is just sample data. So then now that you have all of that data in there, you've gone in and put it in there, you're going to save that and import it. So we go back here, and because I'm connecting to Google Sheets, we're gonna just keep that there. Go through some of that. Allows it to connect. And spreadsheets, non-Google ads is the first one. So we have that non-Google ads cost in there. Now you can actually then filter this, so you can choose which ones to add conditions to select to your import. We're going to add a campaign name, and then you can go through and filter on just that if you wanted to just add that, right? So I don't think we need to do that. I'm just going to do next. And now we're going to map the fields, right? So campaign source is source. Campaign medium. The date. We don't have the ID. Well, we do have a default ID, but if you didn't have the ID in there, you could just go with name, campaign name. Okay. And then additional fields. So daily cost, it's cost, clicks, and impressions. All right, so now we have that in there. We don't have the ID in this one because a lot of people aren't going to have the ID, but it is suggested that you do add that going forward. Let's click next. All right, so all of this is in here. We can edit this if we needed to. This is a live account, but they're not running any ads. So you're going to see that because it doesn't match anything that's actually coming through in the data, it's not going to do anything, but it'll try. So we're just going to finish that. All right, and so this takes, in some cases, anywhere from 30 minutes to 24 hours to complete. And you can see that that is processing. So when that's done processing, we can go back in and it's going to show where, if it matched, if there's how many rows and how many whatever that it showed. And it's going to import that data. So within about 24 hours, you'll be able to go in and go back to these reports. So we'll go to acquisition, the non-Google ad cost, or non-Google cost rather, for instance. And in this specific report, it'll then start showing that ad cost if it matches the campaign name and the campaign, or the campaign ID if you have that. Now you'll notice in other reports, they too sometimes have cost. Like this one doesn't. I don't remember if you can add it to this one. Let's see if we can add it as a metric. I don't recall right offhand. I don't care about events per session, so let's see if it has cost. No, cost hasn't showed up in this one. But anyway, it will show in that previous report the non-Google cost. Okay, and it will also show in Explore. So you can go and Explore and choose those metrics once it comes through. And cost may show up once it actually has data in there. So we'll see if that shows up. But we don't do this a lot for our clients because, again, it is extremely manually intensive, at least this process. If you have data connectors or if you have that kind of stuff that makes it a little bit easier, there are, for instance, plugins that you can get for Looker Studio and things like Google Sheets, like Supermetrics and stuff like that, that will pull some of that data out for you. So you don't have to manually go in and export stuff into directly from Facebook and those other things. So like, I know Supermetrics is one that's comes to mind. I know there's other tools like that they will pull that for you, and then you can pull it into either Looker Studio or into spreadsheets and that kind of stuff, and export that a little bit more easily. And then you could build a report, for instance, that imports all of that into a spreadsheet, puts it into your Google Sheets, and does this more automatically, but you still have to go in and do it again, do it each time you want to upload that data. And so one important thing to keep in mind is that once that has been created in analytics, so let me just go back real quick to admin, data. Once this is in here, if you want to add more, you still need to use this same one. So you can import more data into it, but you need to work from the same sheet. So if I wanted to add, for instance, tomorrow's data or another day's data, I'm going to work from the same spreadsheet. So I'm going to add it in here, paste it in, then re-import this. Because I believe if I remove this, it will remove it from the data. So it's referencing this sheet essentially every time we import it. It validates it and then references it. So it's a data source for Google. So if you make modifications to this, if you remove these campaigns and stuff, if I believe correctly, I'm pretty sure that it will actually impact your reporting. So just be aware of that you're going to have to continually build on this and keep using this spreadsheet and re-uploading it on a daily basis, or at least you could do this by month, I guess, if you want to do it for the whole month. But that's a lot of data, it's a lot of days, it's a lot of campaigns, depending on what you want to do. So it's up to you to decide if this is something that is good for your business, or if it's something that you really need. I can see how it would make your reporting a little bit easier in the long run, but it is a lot of busy work to get this data integrated. There are other tools that can do this a little bit easier, as far as bringing in third-party data and sheets and stuff like that. So I don't know that it's 100% necessary to do it in Google Analytics, but totally up to you. If you have questions, let us know. If you have other ways of doing this that are working for you, we'd love to hear about it. Or if you have tools or tricks that make this whole import process easier, we'd love to know about that too. So let us know if you have those tricks, or if there's something else that you would like to see in upcoming videos. And have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.